makes a big difference to walk in a room and you're like, the first meeting, you're like, oh, other people can't get out of bed. Other people can't find the right medication. Other people are crying all day, you know.
So we're very much going to turn this over to the audience. The thing that I so love about Real Mind is the interaction. I was just saying that this felt for me very much like a kind of emotional roller coaster as I was going through this with you. And I can't both think about what this must be like to go through each night for you. Is it?
Really, I got one. Sorry, I forgot I have to be on the mic. We did a 12 show. It was supposed to be 16, but I got COVID the first week of the production in the spring in New York City. So I did it, once I got going, it was like I did 12 and I did 4 a week, like Thursday through Sunday. So it wasn't like 8 shows a week, which would be really brutal. But yeah, so like now I took a break and this is the first time I've done it since the spring. We've been rehearsing. Yeah, so it's like, it's demanding. Yeah, definitely.
It was also had an element of being in a really absolutely terrific NAMI meeting. The feeling of support was also very much there. Folks.
I'm wondering how much the play is based on the real story of somebody, or was this created?
It is based, I mean, it's not exactly a documentary, but all the events that happen. It's just like the moments of depression and anxiety are heightened and creative. You know, it's not like verbatim what I heard in my head necessarily. It's just to tell the story. But yeah, it's very much everything what happened to me in 9 months.
Nine months somehow seems appropriate. Rebirth.
You can rebirth yourself.
We should do introductions. Anne is a psychiatrist in town, incredibly gifted, talented psychiatrist in town. Most recently, director of the residency program at Rochester General. And Patrick, you were here as a director.
Yeah. I'm Padraic. I directed and helped develop the show with Adina.
And Adina needs no introduction at this point. And you said she nailed us.
Ooh, she did. So I'm sitting here in this row with psychiatrists, right? And I said, oh, she had nailed us. And I just loved it because, you know, as a physician, you know, you're well, first of all, you really nailed us because everybody gave you just bags of pills, okay? Now, because I'm also, the other psychiatrists in the room also are, that I know, do therapy as well. I'm a DBT intensively. So I smiled at all the DBT in there. But, you know, I found myself thinking, I'm sure it looks and feels just like that. And how would you do it differently? One of my residents was here and he left. And the question we'll talk about in the residency will be, how do you do it differently than that? Do you have thoughts?
I think my thought is like, I don't know, in New York City, I don't know how many combination, like I think, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but in like years ago, it was like, you know, you had a combination psychiatrist, psychologist with, you know, training, talk therapy training, and now it's more divided. Like I still see Dr. Earl, you know, to this day, and then I have Rhoda, and I still see Rhoda. So I have it separated. So I guess I would say that if it's going to be combined, then there, or even just the psychiatrist, I think, even if they're just talking, you know, about medication and it's not the same kind of psychoanalytic process as with the talk therapist, maybe a little more, you know, kind of listening or empathy. Not, of course, that's a generalization, but, you know, I don't know. Do you agree with that, or do you both do talk therapy though, right?
I'm not happy with where I see much of the field going. There's a wonderful paper that talks about this pendulum that psychiatry has gone through, and from one end where it's exclusively mind and ignoring the brain, and the other end where it's all brain and ignoring the mind. And I think we're in a relatively mindless period as a profession, and others leaving it to other people as opposed to trying to really take care of the whole person. I'd love to see, and I think there are signs that maybe the pendulum is starting to swing back a little bit. But no, I think it's been a problem.
I think one of the signs that the pendulum's swinging back is as a residency director, I have 4 slots. I have like 900 applicants for 4 slots. So that a few years ago, psychiatry programs went begging to find anybody. You know, we were like 4th from the bottom in payment.
They took her and me, yeah.
That's right. And, you know, we were 4th at the bottom for payment, and, you know, people just sort of did their rotation. Can I get through it? How fast can I get through it? And I do hear in the current generation a much greater interest in hearing the stories. Wanting, you know, choosing it because in the rest of medicine, you're going to spend 6 minutes with your patient. And the thought that they might have 30 minutes or an hour is like exciting. So I think in my mind that marks one of the signs of perhaps a change back from, yeah. You also, I'm going to have to ask you a question. You made me smile so much inside because you talked about lithium.
It took a while to get.
Yeah, because, you know, I'm old guard enough that I have many individuals that it's a hard sell. People say, oh my God, it's this, it's that. It requires blood monitoring, all of that stuff. But it has been just for so many people, fantastic. I mean, it's hard to take. It has side effects. Some of them are serious. But I was just really happy that you talked about lithium.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lifesaver for me. You know, everybody's brain is different. I always say that when I do a talk back, like my story and the medications I took, that's me individually. Like, you know, I don't want people running out of here thinking, oh, should I be on lithium? I don't know, maybe I take a lithium. Or, you know, it's not a commercial for lithium. I just want to be clear about that. But
that's the problem. There are no commercials for lithium. Lithium you dig out of the ground.
Right.
It's not put out by a major drug company that's going to advertise it. We're not seeing it while we're watching the Super Bowl. That's a problem. And it works better than anything else we got.
Yeah, and I've been lucky. I mean, I get all the blood tests, but I haven't, it's been 12 years. I haven't had any kidney level problems, which is the big thing that they look for. And very little, I mean, I do have a little shake, but now I'm actually tapering off right now to get lower and lower with it to see if it'll stop the tremor. But anyway, yeah, it's been a really good experience for me. So, yes.
Thoughts, reactions?
Yeah, it sounded like lithium was a big break. If you didn't have the lithium, if you didn't switch to the lithium, how do you think the other part of your psychotherapy would that have worked by itself?
I don't know. I want to say I'm not sure. Like, I think that I was really struggling. A lot of the other mood stabilizers were really making me like spacey and not myself. And with lithium, I had my personality and everything. So I didn't feel groggy. I didn't feel out of it. I felt better than ever in terms of my thinking. So I don't know. Maybe not. You know, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, I was really grateful that I saw that doctor who's on the board of MDSG with me now. I'm on the board. And I moved up through the ranks where I'm on the board, and he's like a colleague now, you know, Dr. Hellerstein. And I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have been okay. But I'm grateful it worked out, obviously. You know, and I don't know. I mean, there are people who take lithium for like 30 years. They start having kidney problems, they have to switch, and that's the big fear. Like, you know, but there's so many drugs. I mean, Anne and Dr. Guttmacher and Dr. Griepp could speak more to, you know, what's out there besides lithium if you really want to know that. I mean, there are a lot of different medications, and it's your brain chemistry, you know, so I don't know. Thank you for asking that.
Okay, so you established fairly early on in the play, and very candidly mentioned okay, that you were rich. And I guess, given that, I was wondering if anyone on the panel could address the disparity, if there is disparity, presumably there is, between, you know, people who have financial advantages versus those who don't, you know, with respect to duration of treatment, quality of treatment, etc. I know it's a broad question, but, you know.
I think these two medical professionals should answer that, because I totally agree with you. It's a huge problem, and it, you know, people aren't getting the treatment that they need because of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's clear Adina got Cadillac treatment. There's no question about that. And it's clear that the American healthcare system has multiple tiers. It's also clear that those with serious mental illness that this is an exceptional story, that the majority of the seriously mentally ill are folks who are often trying to live on $900 a month of SSI. Try to deal with that in addition to the underlying mental illness, and it's a recipe fraught with trouble. It's also much more likely that you are going to see somebody who's going to do a 10 to 15 minute medication visit, and much less likely that you're going to be able to get quality psychotherapy. I'm distressed that there are, in many cities, fortunately this is not to a great extent invaded Rochester, there are folks out there who will not see anybody with insurance. That it's cash and carry only, and very high priced cash and carry. That's a hell of a problem. Part of it's supply and demand. Part of it is we clearly don't have enough folks available to offer good treatment. Part of it is, again, the way that our healthcare system is set up. You know, my strong bias is we need a single payer national health plan that would start to address some of these issues. But until we get to that point, you know, we are left with this healthcare system where money helps dramatically in terms of getting good care.
I think you're especially right about access, though I think the important part of another part that your story really shared is that even though you had such resource, I think to me what's striking is that we often say, well, if I had more resource, but the truth is this was hard, you know, clawing, awful work, even with resources and even with some people in your corner. And so, again, how much harder is it for folks who may not have an intact family or whatever, but
A
that
husband, you know, a loved one taking them and keeping an eye. It's hard when you're alone. Sorry, I didn't have the mic. Let me just say, it's harder when you're alone, right? And I had this great husband, and I feel really blessed for that. And anyway, here you go. Did you want to say something?
Well, I did. I wanted to say it was the thing that I love about, in the process, about how thorough I thought the show, Adina's work is the idea that it's an imperfect science, and I thought that was interesting. And I thought all the tools are, I battle depression and I'm not on medication. But through the rehearsal process, I'm like, oh, right, I do the walk, I do exercise every day, I do the sleep hygiene. The first time she said sleep hygiene in rehearsal, I was totally offended because I was like, fuck, I gotta do better. But it's all those tools about that I was applying, and go to therapy and 12-step and all the other things that are in there. And I thought and it's really useful, the tools, whether I think medication is part of it. And I also wanted to say a thing about resources. We've worked on the show. We started workshopping in 2019. I will say the last day of rehearsal before coming up here to present the show, I had a comment to her about leaving Sierra Tucson where I said, well, there's something kind of funny about this. You're still struggling. And they're like, here's a coin and let's go for a mindfulness walk. And I'm like, she's still depressed. like maybe not go for a mindfulness walk, maybe help, and I thought, right, some people, they're in a place where that's helping them, and another person needs to meet Jenny Tate and needs to meet the last two doctors, and the thing that I love that's in the play is when Rhoda, her therapist, says, do you want to get better? And I thought, right, that is the work, because you have to keep doing the work. You have to keep wanting to get better. It's not easy. That's what I heard, and it's not a straight line. Which I love, because I think that's true for everyone.
Are the people from Creative Wellness Opportunities here? Anybody? No? Okay. They were here for the show. Sorry, I was just, because they're like a local support group for people with mood disorders here in Rochester. So anyway. Somebody.
Oh, she's going, one more thought. I think the other thing that should be said, I worked a lot of years at Rochester Psych Center. And if I think about the outpatient program there's some really wonderful folks who are working there and are clearly not doing it to get rich, but are doing it because they're dedicated and it's meaningful work. And sounds ridiculous, but yeah, the ability to do some good by being there. So the system is fraught with difficulties, but we somehow continue to attract people into it who are doing it for all the right reasons. So.
Just a thought about creative wellness. I just retired from creative wellness, and having more time to reflect, I think that the power of creative wellness was that it evolved into a mutually supportive community. So it wasn't self-help. It was a matter, okay, you're bringing yourself here, and the choice was, what are you going to do? Not how are you going to be taken care of when we don't feel well. That's probably instinctive, but it was a matter of watching the community build a community of wellness with each other and be able to use some of the gifts and talents that they had in a way that was reflective of who they were without judgment. And I think that it was beyond the group experience. It was an experience of community and self-responsibility and responsibility to that community. And anyway, I just thought I'd throw that 23 cents out there. Thanks.
And I think that fits with your depiction of the play of your group. If I look back on these many, many years I've been doing this, the thing that gives me the greatest hope about the change in the field is the whole peer support movement. Folks with lived experience have an ability to be helpful in a way that I frankly can't. It's a very different sort of approach, and one that offers a great deal. Creative wellness is just the most wonderful, dramatic example of that, and the work you're doing with your group, I think, is much the same thing.
Yeah, it makes a big difference to walk in a room and you're like, the first meeting, you're like, oh, other people can't get out of bed. Other people can't find the right medication. Other people are crying all day, And they say things to you like, well, you got here, because everybody's really hard on themselves, And like the big thing is like, you came here. That's an accomplishment, And you start to build that muscle of giving yourself a pat on the back instead of constantly like that depressed you saw in the play, that mean voice, So yeah, I'm a big, the peer support group, breaking the stigma for yourself, and feeling like it's okay. It's been really huge. So, yeah.
I'm curious, Adina, how many people after your show have said that you moved them to treatment? I mean, I could feel in the room people connect with what you were saying. You were touching some people, and probably some people felt some healing moments just from watching it. I'm wondering how much you've heard.
I mean, I haven't had anyone specifically say, I'm finally getting help, thank you, but I think it's helped them feel less alone and less stigma. And, some of them want to write their own stuff now and tell their, I mean, that's the hope, is people are inspired to tell their story. I mean, even if it's just telling their story to a friend for the first time, or to someone they were afraid to tell. It's not about everybody writing a play, or writing a memoir, but just feeling like it's okay to talk about it. And so that I've gotten that feedback, yeah.
Work around me some, yeah, there. Sorry. I wanted to say thank you for your honesty in treating us as though we were a friend, so you were able to share your vulnerable moments, and in a way that was hilarious, because I look at what I've gone through and it wasn't all really sad, or even if it was sad at that moment, I don't necessarily feel that way because it's kind of what had to happen for me in all of those moments. But now I get to sit with like my best friend, who at one point I thought was an invasion of a body snatcher person, right? So I stopped trusting everyone in the entire world, including my own family and friends. And so just to be now at the point where we've reconnected and I can share my story with her in a way that we like laugh about it, like that feels like nice. And so just and in sharing your story, like, there is a question I did want to ask. Like, I know you're doing the play performance of this. If you were going to do this again in New York City, because I have friends who I would love to see this, so that way they understand my story a little bit more, as well as like if you were going to like film this so I can share it with people, because it was so like profoundly truthful for just like, and in a way that like wasn't sad, it's like, sure, like all this stuff is really sad, but it doesn't have to be. We're not in that place any longer.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I hope everyone else heard enough of what I said.
No, I'm glad,
Thank you.
I'm glad that some of, you laughed and you felt like, okay, this is, me telling you as a friend. I love that. And I do have a film of it. Yeah, that's, available upon request. So, and I'm waiting to hear, I might do like a one-off in New York. I'm waiting to hear some other solo performers, but I don't, I don't have anything booked yet, but I can, if you want to email me, it's my name, Adina Taubman @gmail. Seriously, but what's your name? Jeremy, if you want to email me. What? Okay. We'll get it. But anyway, or you can go to my website, whatever. And if you do want to like have your friends see it or whatever, we could work something out. Thank you.
I just wanted to say something. Thank you so much for that. I think that it's
there you are.
It was very touching, and it gives a different perspective. And so I just want to kind of give you ask you. I'm a second-year resident currently, and I wanted to ask you a little bit more about when you were first discharged after the 30 days from Tucson, and the support that you actually received when you were discharged. Because one thing that I've always noticed is we're releasing patients at they're very vulnerable at that moment after a 30-day stay. And there's a lot of roadblocks and problems with getting connected right off the bat once you're discharged. And do you think that helped? Do you think that it didn't help, for that matter? Do you think there were resources that were made available that maybe could have helped you?
When I left, it's not in the play, but when I left Sierra Tucson, they did give me upon discharge, like all these places in New York. And I think the first place that Michael takes me, Columbia Doctors, with the woman who says I'm too sick to join her study. That was recommended by them. And they have a list in every city, and you sit with somebody and they give you a discharge plan, they call it. And they try to give you 12 steps, or they have actually sister groups. So like at Sierra Tucson, they did kind of like you saw Tony's group, but they also had like a regular 12-step thing that they used from a psychological perspective. And they give you like Sierra Tucson alumni groups that you can go to and do the 12 steps, which they've sort of rewritten in terms of, psychological health in New York. So they gave me a list of different things. And Michael kind of took it upon himself to find something else, because I clearly wasn't better when I came back, and it was really hard for him. And he was like, okay, I'm going to ask some other people and research some other things. But that's not to say, like, as Patrick said, that, people are at different stages. I was one of the sickest people there, and I couldn't get the right medication, and that made a huge difference. For the people who were there with mild depression in the mood disorder unit who, were on Prozac or Zoloft a little bit, and they were much more functional. I think that they got more out of it. That they were better when they left. And they were able to respond to it. I don't know if that answers your question, but I was really not. I was still shaky when I left there, and I kept looking for the right medication, the right treatment, and I found the DBT. And like for example, at Sierra Tucson, they had a DBT class. But I mean, if you can't concentrate, when you're so depressed, you can't read, I couldn't watch TV. I thought it was like a tragedy. I couldn't focus on American Idol anymore. I would sit there and I was just like this, like it's on and I'm just like this, and I was like, oh my God, I can't get enjoyment out of anything. And I certainly can't take DBT, as you know, it's taught like a class. There's reading, there's homework. You got to try out the skills each week in your life, write about it, bring it in, you got to be a real student when you do that. So, yeah, but they did. To circle back, they did give me a discharge plan and recommend places in New York for me. They did do that. Long answer.
No, it's a really good question, though. In my career, I've had different hats, and one of the hats I had was working with one of the bigger insurers in this area. And a challenge of when people go to residentials or they leave the area is that we see this a lot with chemical dependence. Somebody leaves and they stay for 30 days at X however many dollars and are picked up by their dealer at the airport when they come back. That's a very common story. And so that there often has been good work, but it doesn't quite translate to the next place. And so it can be very easy. People can kind of get lost in that spot.
Well, and frankly, again, this another old man moment. We have a very different model. At one point, the model was your outpatient therapist would follow you in the hospital and would pick you up again when you left. Now we've got one team taking care of you inpatient. It's more efficient. Driven by all that, you're then transferred to somebody else. You've got to begin all over again.
Somebody had a
I wonder if you'd be willing to tell us the story of going from living this experience to thinking, hey, I want to share this with people, to actually writing something, to finding someone to listen to you that you should share it, to being here and doing this, because it's amazing.
Thank you. Well, I didn't start writing it. I had done 2 other one-person shows, so I knew how to tell stories, but they'd never been autobiographical. So I would say 5 years out, or wait, I got better in 2010, and then I started facilitating in 2011. So 2015, I started writing this. So it took me a while, and I needed distance. There's no way you could do a play like this and still be struggling So otherwise, I never get triggered. It's exhausting, but it's very cathartic for me to do it. It's kind of energizing. And connecting with all of you is great. But anyway, so I needed that distance. So I started in a woman, she's a famous comedian, Judy Gold. She teaches us, she's done solo shows as well, and she taught at a school in New York, solo performance, and you would go in and you would work on an 8-minute scene. So I just wrote the first couple scenes, and they weren't the heavy scenes, you know, they weren't the intense self-harming scenes. They were just like my family and stuff like that you see at the beginning. I started with those scenes, and then at the end of, you know, we'd work for 10 weeks on an 8-minute scene, present that for the people in class, so like 10 people, you know. And then, you know, also I had talked about it for 5 years in support groups. So something about that witnessing that, like, you know, with 10 people in a group, 12, 15 people in a group, everybody telling their story, there's something really powerful about that. So I stopped feeling weird about it, you know, or stigmatized by it. So that helped. And then I did the class, and I was like, oh, nobody thinks I'm weird, you know. In here, it's going okay. And then gradually I built up, and finally I had like 130 pages, and Patrick and I he helped me cut it down. We cut like 100 pages off this thing. And we did like 2 readings with small groups of people, like 2018, and then we did 2019, we did a workshop, and then we were supposed to do it in 2020, a full production, and then we all know what happened in the fall. You know, we couldn't do it in the fall of 2020, and then I just did it finally this spring. So it's been a long journey, and I've gotten, I guess when you ask why did you, like I told you how I got comfortable talking about my story, but the play part of presenting it, that just feels like that's my medium through which I would tell any story. So, you know, it was like, how do you tell it in a way that's entertaining, that's the highlights, that takes people on a ride, that's heightened in some ways? Like, I had to figure out, and it was the fun part, was creating anxiety and depression and the wall and the clock as characters, you know? Mm-hmm. And that makes it less. But I mean, it's true. You do stare at the wall and the clock a lot in your bed, you know, and you can't get out of it. And so that became fun and just kind of snowballed into the whole story. I hope that answers your question.
I have a question for Adina. And how has your family responded to this, especially like your mother or father, if they're still around?
Good question. My father died in 2011, so I had just gotten better, thankfully. So I was able to like say goodbye to him and be well enough to travel back and forth to California. And so that was just really lucky. He was 95 when he died in 2011. So yeah, he didn't, you know, I hadn't written it yet. And then my mother now has Alzheimer's. She's at skilled nursing full-time in San Diego. So as I was developing it, I wasn't gonna, she was, you know, I wasn't going to relive that with her, and she also didn't really remember what happened to me. So there's no way I would show it to her now. I don't want to upset her in any ways. You know, she's at the end of the last years. I don't know. She has really pretty intense Alzheimer's. So, and my brother hasn't seen it either. So I had a couple of cousins see it, who of course aren't in the story. And I've had Rhoda's seen it. Dr. Earl hasn't seen it. All my MDSG family, Tori, who's in the story, has seen it. Joyce has not seen it, the facilitator. Who else? And of course, Michael. Yeah. Now, when Michael, you know, who's really my family of choice, he, you know, the girls don't. My older daughter is 17. She doesn't want to see it. She's had her own issues with anxiety. She's just like, it's too triggering. And my younger one's 14. So when they're ready, you know, there's a film of it they can see later in life. And Michael, you know, he saw it once during the run. He came to the opening, and that's, you know, he's not going to come like 5 times because it's triggering for him. You know, it was an ordeal. I mean, yeah, 20 years we just celebrated. Yeah, he's a, you know, we say he's a saint. He's not a saint, but he's, you know, if you can get through that, and not all couples do, but if you can, you know, you're solid.
So that was part of my question. My other part is just what you're working on now, professionally.
This, and we shot the film, and I'm making a sizzle reel to try to send it out to theaters and mental health groups to try to get it done wherever I can tour it. And I'm working on writing a short film, and, you know, that's it right now. Thank you. What? Yes. That's a full-time job, yeah.
I'm allowed. I just have a brief question about when you were in Tucson and they were throwing all these medications at you all at the same time, it sounded like. And how about the side effect interactions and things like that? Did you have any with all those?
Oh, when I was taking all those medications?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was an interaction problem or if it was just, but taking those sleep meds, see, I mean, like the doctor said, he was a very nice man and he was very competent, but he felt that, as I say in the play, because I was in a residential facility under his supervision, that I could quickly try different things. Like in real life, they wouldn't give you, okay, you're going to try this week and you're going to try this one this week. You'd space it out more, but because I only had 30 days, it was very quickly trying different things. And it was a lot. Yeah, it was like, you know, I was already depressed and then I was like out of it from all the meds, and it did not help me function. So yeah, it was, I mean, I didn't get really, really sick. It was mainly a feeling of grogginess or shakiness. And I couldn't concentrate anyway, and it just got worse from all those meds. So yeah, it was hard. So it's hard to say, you know what I mean, which one didn't work. And then they would get you up really early. They would like 6:37, you know, because they wanted you to have a routine and go to your schedule, which is good. You know, nobody sits around in bed at the facility, even if you're unhappy or, you know, you're like, and it was gorgeous. Like I always joke with Patrick, if I could go back to Sierra Tucson now to just take a break from my kids and enjoy all the classes and the mountains and the rock wall, climbing wall, you know, it would be like a vacation. But at the time, I just couldn't take it in because I was so out of it, right? But it's a very, I mean, I think it's a good place. I don't want anybody here to feel like it's not a good place because I still wasn't well when I left. That was just me, you know. I think they have some amazing modalities, as they say. They're very cutting edge treatments, and a lot of people do benefit from it. And it is very expensive to, you know, to your point, not everybody can afford to go there. But anyway.
I have a question about therapists. What would you say to a family member that has been without a therapist for several years, and all the attempts to find one or to, you know, contact different people, they say, well, they're not taking new patients. And this person has also taken themselves off all medication, so they're trying a different path. They're thinking more nutritional and getting on the internet and so forth. And it's very frustrating as family members here to see that. So I'm just wondering, are there other avenues to find a therapist, or like this telehealth we hear about advertised? Is that good, or?
Let me jump in a little bit. You know, I have said with the COVID pandemic, we have really had this tremendous opportunity for mental health because people are talking about depression and anxiety like they never did. In terms of lowering stigma and saying what a good time to get people talking, everybody's saying the kids are having trouble, everybody's having trouble, the isolation. And the problem is we don't have the workforce. I mean, it's part of why we started another residency in town, is we don't have the workforce. And we have extended the workforce some by virtual care. It's not perfect. It's better than nothing. But I do think this is where, you know, we're talking about the use of peers. You know, we all get different based on different things. And so I would say they may want to put themselves on a waiting list. Their primary care may have somebody that they can help. Sometimes that works. But meanwhile, if you got to a place like Creative Wellness or to some of the things at the Mental Health Association or at NAMI, it gives you at least some network to help hold you. But it is tough. I don't know if you have any better, you know, I think it's sad to say you have to kind of work your network. I can't tell you how many people call me at home and want me to find a psychiatrist for them. And the problem is, you know, they're all full. You can't, obviously it doesn't do any good to overload somebody so that they're not healthy, taking care of people. And it's tough. It's, you know, we're not a 10-minute business. People need their hour or sometimes 2 hours a week. And it's challenging. I don't know what you would add to that, Larry.
I have nothing to add. I think there is, again, this dramatic shortage what we need. Demand has gone up, which is great, and the supply has not kept pace in terms of availability.
I would say, oh, sorry. I would just say that Dr. Griepp was saying, NAMI or creative wellness opportunities, if they have a friends and family group, that is one of my favorite groups to facilitate when I've done it, because there's not a lot of support and information out there for loved ones and friends of people who are struggling with mood disorders. So to have a group where you can see other family members who, and you can share resources and have, be able to call them during the week and, hear what they've gone through. I mean, it's invaluable. So that may be, as you mentioned, the place to start at NAMI or creative wellness opportunities. And they might know a doctor, who knows, who they know has availability. It couldn't hurt to start there. That's what I would say, not as a medical professional, but just having seen the power of the friends and family groups at these support organizations.
I hope you don't mind my throwing you under the bus, but Jack Goldstein over here is one of the facilitators with NAMI. If you have questions about NAMI,
great.
There he is.
Oh, great.
And, you've seen creative wellness folks out here as well. So I don't think he was volunteering to speak. I was just going.
Yeah.
Now he's forced.
Yeah, we get a lot of people coming to the support group, which is weekly. Speaking from my own experience, I would say that for years I was on lithium and many, many different meds. No one ever mentioned really that when you're getting high all the time, your diagnosis changed for me when I stopped, and they thought I was bipolar, that I had bipolar, but really when I stopped getting high all the time, that changed, and it's just depression now. But for years I was on lithium and got a lot of different medications, and when I stopped getting high, I stopped cycling, and I don't have that anymore. And one antidepressant does it all. But people come into the group. We have people with schizophrenia and people with bipolar and people with depression, people with anxiety. Depression and anxiety seem to travel together a lot. We try to help people as best we can and steer them in the direction of things that'll be helpful. There aren't enough therapists or psychiatrists, is what we've noticed.
And I would also add, for the family that was asking, everybody's path to wellness is different. And whatever you could do to help somebody have a connection, whether it's NAMI or it's AA or whatever, sometimes it's joining a yoga class. I'm not trying to say that all of that supplements getting the right medication or effective psychotherapy, but sometimes when people are in this holding place trying to get connected, sometimes it's a church community that gets you involved doing something good for other people and you feel a place of belonging. Some people find volunteerism, Lollipop Farm, that a lot of people get. That's a big animal rescue here.
Oh, okay.
And I can't tell you how many people I know that have found some sense of belonging, community. That's not going to take care of everything, but I think that it can help a family who's trying to kind of hold somebody while they're getting the right connection.
Yeah, that comes up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. It comes up in groups a lot. When I was facilitating a lot, now I do it like once a month, but volunteering, yeah. Like being a facilitator helped me, and it helps all the facilitators at MDSG. You know, if you're running groups, it's like you are inspired by the stories you hear in the group to keep on your path of wellness. Like it's just, and you feel good doing it, you know, you feel like you've had a meaningful time and connect in community. So, but it doesn't have to be, you don't have to become a facilitator. You could, like you said, help animals, anything you're interested in. But we used to, like, every meeting we would give out the link in New York. There's like a website with all the volunteer opportunities in the city. And it really, I think it's like a pillar of recovery for a lot of people. So anyway.
So we should probably wrap up. I can't thank the three of you enough, and just a wonderful evening. The next meeting of the congregation will be on Tuesday night. We'll be showing a film called Mental is Everything. It's going to be a good time. Just say that. So thanks again to all of you for coming, and thank you all so much for putting this on.
Thank you for hanging out with us late. Appreciate it.